Nokodemion, his successor personalities, and the sevenfold series of prophets on Earth from Bernadette Brand, with the appreciated help and support of Billy and Ptah Cedar, symbol of permanence, strength, immortality, and keeping consciousness from decaying. Rough translation by Marilyn Kopchik. Preface.
The image of the cedar tree, emblazoned in a beautiful and striking photograph on the cover and in a modest drawing on the inside title of the book, was chosen by Billy specifically for the Nokodemion book. The cedar stands as a symbol of permanence, strength, immortality, and preserving consciousness from decay. What could be more right and true for this book? This symbol characterizes as well the historical figure of Nokodemion as the personality of Billy in his mission as a herald of modern times. Both Nokodemion and Billy went and go far beyond anything other people have ever taken upon themselves in their devotion to duty, fulfillment of duty, and love for creation and truthful truth. Unfortunately, this book cannot fully illuminate the person of Nokodemion, and he remains what he has been over the billions of years to the descendants of his peoples, a figure who occupies an absolutely unique status in the history of the universe, a living monument to what man can achieve when he opens to the consciousness of truth within himself and begins to realize and live that consciousness. Through all the infinitely long time since the work of the Nokodemion, the memory of him has remained more or less alive. If he disappeared from the memory of some peoples, others made sure that he was remembered, and that his teachings were carried on or taught again by new ones. The figure of Nokodemion, which has long since faded into the background in the twilight of earliest universe history, became alive in reality for me in the sense that I think to find its characteristics again in the human being, who is the last founder-carrier of the spirit form of Nokodemion for this earth in the present time. Too obvious to me are the parallels, the abilities, the character traits, and the strength of Billy for me to doubt this fact. When Billy asked me to gather the material about Nokodemion from the scriptures and to compile a booklet from it, I set to work with great pleasure and a certain pride. Thanks to his extremely valuable help, and thanks to the suggestions of Ptah, who suggested some extensions I would never have thought of myself, it has now become a book, and I have been given a great deal of context. I am now much clearer and more aware than ever before that man can achieve everything and create peace, harmony, and knowledge within himself if he takes the path that Nokodemion has prepared and that Billy is continuing today. I have become more conscious during the work on this small work that I stand still quite at the beginning and have all reason to greatest modesty. The universe will not turn according to my will or that of another person, but man must learn to turn with the universe, in his thoughts, his feelings, and with his whole being and essence. Therein lies also the example that Nokodemion and Billy give and the secret of their strength, the perfection with which they as human beings recognized the laws and commandments of creation and inserted themselves into them and implemented them in their respective lives. It is a great pity that nothing is known today about the closer circumstances of the life of the first Nokodemion, but I suppose certainly not completely wrong that they were not easy, and in their challenge at least similar to those that Billy had to face during his life. A teaching such as Nokodemion created must be experienced, lived, and put into practice if it is to endure for as long a time as the spirit teaching has. Recently, in response to a question, Billy explained to me that truth is the certainty of reality. From this I understood that in truth there is also the greatest clarity, absolute unprejudisedness, purest knowledge, and complete straightness of thought and expression, as well as tolerance, love, wisdom, balance, and understanding. The truth cannot and must not allow any embellishment, no phantasms, and no assumptions, because it is the essence of existence as well as the course and life itself. It can and must also prove itself through life itself, and consequently everything that happens to man in his life is related to the truth of life and its lawfulness. Ergo, the degree of the realization of the truth is shown in the life of a person himself, and the way a person lives his life is in turn an indication and proof of whether and how much he is still aligned to the truth. That is why Nokodemion and Billy are also so at Spielgebend, because their teaching, which is and remains unchangeably the same teaching, which was and is never changed, but only expanded, viz. The teaching of the truth, teaching of the spirit, teaching of the life, is for all people a shining memorial and proof of the existence and the working of the creation in its laws and commandments, as well as in the human being himself, if he integrates himself comprehensively into the truth and tries to live it as correctly as he is able. The history of Nokodemion and its peoples is above all the history of the teaching of truth, teaching of the spirit, teaching of life. This teaching, the teaching of the spirit, is characterized by dowerfulness and strength, because the immortality of the creative laws and commandments is inherent in it, because it is based on nothing else. In the recognition of the truth and in the conscious integration into it lies the circumstance that saves the consciousness from decay, because it is precisely the recognition and the integration into the truth that strengthens the consciousness and makes it great, so that it guides and directs us safely and reliably on the wide path of evolution. Bernadette Brand Hinterschmidru, April 30th, 2012.
Thanks.
My deepest and most heartfelt thanks go to Billy, without whose invaluable help and energetic support this book would never have come into being. All further data and information come solely from his efforts and his gigantic knowledge. I would also like to thank all those who contributed in any way to the creation of this book, be it the kitchen correction crew or individual core group members who initiated certain thoughts or questions in me through conversations and discussions, or the many questions and emails from passive members who were interested in the topic and sent me their questions and sometimes speculations. They have all contributed to the creation of this book and have often provided me with important impulses and suggestions. Thanks to all of them, Bernadette Brand Hinterschmidru, July 21st, 2012.
Emergence and work of the Nokodemion prophethood.
The spirit form of the true, truthful, universal prophet is that of the voter Nokodemion. The successor personalities of Nokodemion who emerged from it have held the Nokodemion prophet lineage for more than 9.6 billion years, since the creation of the doctrine of the prophet's resp, the doctrine of the truth, doctrine of the spirit, doctrine of the life, that is to say the doctrine of the spirit by Nokodemion. The universe-wide mission in relation to the spreading of the teaching, which originated from the teaching of the prophets, was Alice created and spread by Nokodemion, exclusively through the rebirths, reincarnations of his spirit form, and the new personalities always connected with it. The Heimat of Nokodemion home world and home system has long since passed away, and has dissolved according to the creative natural law in the process of becoming and passing away. Rope of the Zen existence of Nokodemion has resulted in innumerable rebirths of its spirit, which of course have also again and again animated innumerable new personalities, and that into the 21st century. From the Nokodemion lineage a whole yoke has arisen, which has spread in different areas and parts of the universe. This not only in the room Zen structure, in which Nokodemion worked, but also in our space Zen structure. From the first Nokodemion people in the course of the time the Playars have emerged, who are resident in the old rune time Gelege, and who call our universe the universe. Finally, at early times, large groups of ancient Lyran's ancestors of the Playares, and eventually large groupings of the Playares themselves came to Earth and gave birth to so-called modern man, from which the first unhomophober, and finally the Homo sapiens. Sapiens have emerged. The term Homo faber at der Schollende Mensch oder der Mensch als Handwerken is used in philosophical anthropology to distinguish modern man from more frequent epochs of mankind by his characteristic as an active change agent of his environment. Already early, the consecrated travelers from the valleys of the sky were called gods and sons of the sky, so also the far travelers from the world space coming from the Nokodemion line. Chord Resp. Reborn spirit form of Nokodemion to the earth, namely in a human body, whose personality was called Henoch. As such, Henoch Nokodemion created on the earth the line of the true wounded prophets, whereby at a later time Enoch, who of course in turn had the same spirit form in himself, was the first prophet of this prophet line. This was determined according to an order of the pure spirit plane Arahat Atharsata, which decreed that in 7 whole sequence elegy Voron wounded prophets should come forth, whereby to them the task mission was assigned. The dare of the prophets, that is to say the spirit doctrine, that is to say the teaching of the wisdom, teaching of the spirit, teaching of the life to the people of the earth, and to instruct these thereby in the creative natural laws and commandments. Finally, it is to be said still that beside the true prophets of the Nokodemion line, unfortunately in all world again and again, false prophets and false orphans dripped in appearance and led the people of the earth with enormous leagues, fantasies and religio-sectarische inlehren into the error, and made them dependent on deities and idols as well as from saints and from all kinds of Kulshem mischief. From it all kinds of cults, and with it thus religions and sects developed, which, as well as their glubage, since then consequently Gonhetten and idols as well as saints call and adore and glorify. Unbelievably primitive cult acts are associated with it, and be elegy. And unfortunately it is still the case today that liners, deceivers and eligios as well as sectarian fanatics elevate themselves to prophets, to heralds or to gods and goddesses, through which the uninitiated and glubly addicted people continue to go astray, and continue to spread all evils over the world, such as Haas, Roche, retaliation, discord, disharmony, unfree light, cring, criminalis, lie, deception and slander, as well as torture, murder, and manslaughter. 6. March 2006, Billy.